Hello, my name is Topol, and with my friend Archana Ravindar, our goal for the session today is to demystify for you the magic of networking and to show you how networking can really help you lead and succeed, especially in the times of change. We're going to talk about 3 myths related to networking, how to address them. We're also going to talk about what prevents women from networking successfully. And at the end, well, of course, we're going to share some tips of how to be better at networking. I've been in the IT industry for 19 years. And one of the tips that many of my mentors repeated to me is on how I need to exercise the networking skill, right? How to be more efficient in networking. And I truly, truly believe in it. And honestly, if it wasn't for networking, I would have never met and worked with Archana, who lives in Bangalore, India, right? When I'm in New York, US. So I really believe in it, and that's why we want to talk to you today.
I completely agree with you, Anna. If it was not for you, I wouldn't have got this beautiful opportunity to talk about this networking subject and meet all of you and record this session with you. So, talking about networking, I think the challenge many people face is that they think networking is a box to tick when attending events with large gatherings, that they have to meet a large number of people and they have to leave their business cards. So, I think this brings us to myth number one, the terrifying view of networking, right? And this view is not only old, traditional, and outdated, but I think it's really irrelevant in today's culture. And research shows that networking actually makes people anxious, and 1 in 4 people they just don't network at all. And they perceive that networking is a means to just get ahead in your career, and hence can feel a lot one-sided and selfish.
I cannot agree with you more. And I think, what you said is this terrifying view that you have to go with the cards, right? It's all about you showing yourself. First of all, it's just in the current culture is wrong. And many of the networking trainers actually tell you it may actually hurt your career, right? But yet people are afraid of it, right? And just simply avoid networking altogether. And then it's so sad because the statistics we hear say that if you take a time and you make an effort in improving your networking, 42 to 75%, you are more likely to be promoted versus those who don't. And so somehow this good news that networking really works in enhancing your career is changed into making people uneasy, right? Thinking that networking is all just about career. And I think that's really sad because it's a mean, but it's not just it. And I think the second myth that is, even more disturbing is that networking is all about trading information. Okay, again, it makes it sound so businesslike. It makes it sound so impersonal. It really causes people to worry on what they say. How do they say? People are more anxious in being in the meetings when they are not sure what they can even tell. And so in a meetings like this, when you have this view of networking as a trading information spot, you don't get any benefits, right? You don't bring your best self to such meeting and you don't benefit from those opportunities. So I think instead of seeing the networking in this negative light, we really need to help women understand that they need to focus on extremely positive side of the networking. One of them is the fact that networking really serves as an avenue to create long-term relationships with absolutely incredible mutual benefits. I'm just going to say it again because I strongly believe in it. That networking creates the long-term relationship with mutual benefits. But I think the challenge is for us when we first start, we don't believe that we can bring value, right? We question what is that value we can bring to another person if we don't even know them, right? What is the value during the networking itself? and even in the future. And I think that that's a very difficult thing, and that's something one needs to practice.
Right. And I think I agree with you because once you start viewing networking as a two-way street, it really brings down the level of anxiety, right? I mean, I'm an introvert by nature, and networking with people, especially new ones, is not easy for me. So, what I try to do is when I network with people, instead of trying to accomplish all the great things of, goals of networking all at once, I just approach with a simple goal. I mean, just try to deeply listen to what people have to say, and whenever my insight can help, tend to offer that, right? Wherever it's relevant and wherever it's appropriate. So when I try to converse with my contacts, so rather than just pushing and talking about my business, my work, and my needs, I think what I do is I try to align myself with their needs and try to understand that a bit more and offer my own insight. So that way, I'm just not networking, but I'm really genuinely starting a relationship, right? Like you mentioned, the long term relationship. And by finding unique ways of bringing value to people, networking then begins to feel a very natural and a very equal activity, right? Because the other person is more likely then to respond and bring something of value to you in return, which, especially in times of change, these are the same people who are going to be there for you, to support you and also be your references whenever you need them, right?
Yeah, no, I agree. And you covered the tip of how to bring the value to people you meet, and I think you also touch on that second tip, which is focusing on establishing human connections. Listening is a big part, right? And you said it, because I think contrary to the traditional view, networking is not just something you do when the need arrives. You just don't go to networking event now because I need a new job now. You wouldn't call your friend only when you need a favor, right? And similarly, it's about building those lasting relationships. You can't just network when you want to grow your career or you want to change, business opportunities. Instead, you have to focus on establishing a rewarding but long-term lasting relationships in your network. And so you have to count on professional networks to be a good one and successful one. If you want that, then you have to meet people. You have to cultivate the reputation of reliability, that you're going to be there when they ask you to be there. Simply being empathetic is another piece, right? And so do not forget that in all of this, your value is that once you're meeting the people, you also can be the person introducing others, right? Between the peers. By helping other people meet people, you're strengthening their bonds with you, creating new contacts, right? And creating this trust relationship and the reciprocity in the process, right? Which is such a human connection between the people.
Right. And I think that was a great summary, that you spoke about, trying to summarize what networking should look like and what it should not look like, right? So let's assume that, we persuaded everyone that networking is a great thing and, we should go for it. So how would they then start building a network and grow it and sustain it, given that we often hear about this statement that all the networking can happen via social media, which also happens to be our myth number three.
Yes, yeah, this myth number three, that all the networking can be done on social media, is yeah, that's something we have to talk about, because I think we need to see the difference between what the social media networking is, which is a very big piece of networking in general, versus the natural ability to network, the skill you develop in the networking. So let's start with the social media networking, because it is very important, right? So when it comes to looking for a job, for an internship, places like LinkedIn and others are just simple examples of a gold mine, right? You can sift through job listings, you can scroll through your alumni networks, you can seek career advices from professionals, you can contact recruiters. There are websites providing you resources, right? Everything to jumpstart your career. But I think, however, right, this is the comment, that while everyone has this internet connection to that platform, right? We all have access to it. So we may be enabled to successfully get started. What can easily set one candidate apart from a next one in the progression of their career is this natural ability to network. And that skill is rarely taught at universities, right? This is something you have to hone. This is the skill and ability you need to nurture, and nourishing the networks, creating the networks takes time, right? And so when people ask me, if I give a good example or good parallel, what does it mean to create networks? Because I'm in the IT industry, I often simply think of it as a traditional computer network. So in computer networks are simply the basis of any business, right? They're foundational. They create contacts between the devices, but in organization, they help you communicate internally and with the outside world, right? And so I'm always thinking of it as, how well do you set up your computer-like network for yourself? And so, in the essential parts of the computer network, all are there, but they all are integrated. They're all components that work together very well. So first one is switches, right? Switches are the pieces of hardware, the devices in the network that really create the hard link, so that they are usually wired, cables linked, right? And so think of them as your core support, your mentors, your managers, your friends, your coworkers, right? Your hardcore embedded, wired with them. On the other hand, though, you have access points. These are what we call the Wi-Fi hotspots, right? These are your conferences, your events, your business meetings, other places where you meet people, additional people than the core team that we already discussed. And when you share the information with them, it goes through the server, and this is the comment of, how do you share the information? Do you decide to share it through web? Do you decide to share it through email? Like, what is your mean of sharing the information with them? You need to be conscious how you do it. Because at the end, there are what's called in the network, the clients, right? The devices at the end, where you have to decide what's the reasons for you to send this data, to share this data. How is this data going to be used? And in this, you have to include, what we call in computers, networks, the IP addresses, which help you decide, right, how much of the information is public and how much of the information is really to be shared with others versus your personal information, right? And you have to make the decision of how to do it properly. And you have to install, what in computer network we call the routers and the firewalls, right, to configure it in such a way that you feel safe in your network, that if something goes wrong and you want to disconnect some nodes, you know how to do it, right? Because that's the benefit of the networks that you're setting up themselves, but you have to be conscious of how they are built. You start almost like the network technician, right? Setting up the nodes. While you're working on it, when the network becomes more complex, you become the network administrator. Then you become the network analyst and the manager, right? And then you help others set up their own networks. You teach them, you advise them. Then you become a really specialized network engineer. And at the end, right, when you are well known for your networks, for your connections, you become a network solution architect. And I think, again, the important part, you learn, you trade, you interact with other people, and your network becomes more complex. But when it's well done, it really brings humongous benefits to your business, right? To yourself. Archana, is that a good?
Yeah. I have to admit that I really laughed when I heard you first time using this parallel, but after reading it a bit more, I really realized that it's a very good parallel, right? And it really gives you the insight of how networks actually work. So it's really good. And I think I would just make a small addition to this architecture you just described.
Please do.
I would just add a lower level component here, like compilers. So compiler is a software that translates programs written in one language into another, So if you look into your personal networks, I think your mentors are like your compilers. They actually translate your value, and they showcase your abilities to others without you even realizing it, right? So that is when the real returns come in. So when you have a network built on a strong relationship base with your mentors, coaches, and sponsors, you will really see that benefit just come in naturally, right? Anyway, that was just easy for me to add in because I've been a compiler specialist all my life, so it was a very easy addition to this diagram that you just talked about, right? But I really
Thank you.
believe, I really believe that someone else like your sponsors and mentors can really do a better job than yourself when they talk about your ideas, your work, and success. It really works. So that was just a continuation of your description, and yeah, a little bit about the compilers there. So let's focus on the obstacles to networking, and I think that's a very important topic. So why networking is difficult, especially for women, given that women are traditionally known to be more sharing, their thoughts, and more open to talking with others, and it comes naturally to them. But isn't it ironic that even women, although they have this characteristic, when it comes to networking, they don't do as much as a good job as men, especially when we have reports like Women in Work 2018 that McKinsey and Lean.org published. They actually show that women are not good at networking compared to men. And when women actually do networking, they try to limit their networks to more women rather than also network with men, right? So I see this as a very significant cause of concern, especially when women work as individual engineers and also power players in the corporate industries. So Anna, do you have any thoughts that you can share about what makes it difficult for women from successfully networking?
I think that's very insightful what you said. It's, how can we be so social and yet not be as good as men in networking, right? That seems strange and counterintuitive, right? But according to the study by Sage Publishing, which appeared in the Journal of Human Relations, that study shows that this problem is rooted in the fact that most women tend to fall victim to self-imposed barriers, right? It's not something that anybody does. They have the self-imposed barriers. And those, examples of those self-imposed barriers is, for example, gender modesty, right? The second example is the tendency to just simply undersell themselves, undersell their value and undersell their strength. Another one, which is, again, very important, is simple reluctance to leverage their own connections as the means to improve their, go ahead and improve their careers. And I think, it's really important to, at this stage in education, right, in our lives, in progression, to really push past these roadblocks and really focus on the benefits of networking. I call it, the return on investment. If you really believe in networking, you will see that it's a critical skill you acquire, you practice, but it will continue to pay the dividends throughout, your or the woman's career. And I think to be successful, you must be intentional about the way you create the networks. It's not enough to simply, be sociable. If your goal is to have a seat at the table, if your goal is to be heard, you have to be deliberate about how you create your networks and how you act in those networks. And the benefits are huge because once the networking is done correctly, once you build the networking right, the networking lets women identify role models, which are truly critical, find mentors, find sponsors, expand their business opportunities. And as they rise in their careers, they can also pay it forward, right, by helping others, continuing to lead others behind them, adding them to their own networks, right, and create networks for other women and help them succeed. I think it's huge, and we cannot forget about those benefits that all of us can gain by being in the network.
I agree with you. When I'm listening to this conversation, it feels as if history is playing back, and I can see how this entire concept of networking brought me my best mentors, and they really helped me grow my career, and even build my network, and gave me tips to nourish the network, right? And especially in times of change, when I was seeking for advice, or even new opportunities, they were always there, and helped me make the best decision. So I really wanted to mention like one example here. I still remember the day, when I was trying to get plugged into this new project, and you were there, Anna, you were there. You were saying, Archana, go for it. And you were there when we were drafting that proposal, which eventually led me to start a new team here in the local geo. So it was like magic. It was indeed like magic. So it just worked out that way. So I think we've seen networking help in all these situations, but I think even more importantly, networking becomes crucial, especially in crisis situations. Don't you think?
Yeah, no, I think what you said is so important, because, and then this is going back, right? We need to set up the networks, and then they're the safety net, right? When we have critical situations. And I always comment that it's so odd that in ancient cultures, such as China, the word for crisis and for opportunity was represented by the same symbol, right? They're so opposites, right? But that's exactly what happens, right? In the times of critical challenges, that's where the opportunities arrive. And so if you are the person who created your personal network, if you're a person that cultivated your reputation for reliability, and you are simply empathetic to others, that's where you shine as a true leader, right? And so, and that's where the benefit of network really comes in the most light. And so, team, I just wanted to comment. Archana and I hope that networking could be the magical ingredients in your upcoming success story. We thank you for listening. It was a pleasure to share our stories with you. We added a few links to a very good educational materials on networking. And most importantly, of course, we added our LinkedIn connections, because we hope that now you are part of our networks and that we are part of your network. So please connect with us. Thank you. Thank you, Archana.
Thanks, Anna.